have discussion. Yes, listen, look, you have some issues, correct? Hmm? Yeah. Yeah, but we have to take only one. Okay, come on board. Welcome, come. You want to come to a quick shot?
Yeah, can we, can we move to page 38? Yeah, of the management letter. Yeah, 38. With regards to the fixed asset, it states here that a detailed comprehensive asset register was not provided by NAWEC to verify the authenticity. It also says that an amount of 345 million was understated, affecting primarily the plant and machinery, causing a depreciation and amortization charge of 400 million was recognized in the financial statements, as opposed to the 387 million calculated based on NAWEC's policy of calculating such costs. Just to fast forward, it said here that an unexplained overstated amount of 13.3 million was done. So assets are, here he says assets are neither tagged nor linked to the fixed asset register for control and tracking purposes. Also, a fixed asset verification exercise was not also carried out during the year. Okay, so I'm just trying to make a point. Based on the NAWEC comments, it says here that management refutes the claims from the external auditors that there were material differences between the schedules provided and the trial balance. So I would just like, I would just want an explanation with regards to this, because these are high, it's a high risk, and that there's been a refutation from NAWEC. So we would like clarity on this. And if at least changes have been made with regards to the fixed asset registry.
Yes, so in our opinion, the issues identified by the auditors on this issue, on this matter, with the exception of the detailed asset register, it is an issue of lack of understanding from the auditors of this particular audit. It wasn't something to do with NAWEC. It had nothing to do with NAWEC. We have tried our best to explain to the auditors what have happened. They have rejected what we have explained. That is something that we have no control over. We dispute all the items where they have mentioned differences, because we can prove that there's no difference. In our fixed assets note in the financial statement reconciles, and every item there is documented. You can only submit documents to the auditors. You cannot force them to accept or understand the documents you have given to them. On the issue of the detailed register, that is clearly stated that yes, it did not exist. So what you do is you have the opening balance, and then you can have the details of what you have added during the year. But to have a detail of all the assets from the beginning of time, that system that existed in 2020 could not do that. And we had been working with the consultant, which was DT Associates, to try to get that, but it did not bear fruit. I don't understand the details of how the system was procured. That's before my time. But the consultant and NAWEC, even IT, could not get the details. When we were migrating into the new system, we had a different consultant who was probably more savvy in data extraction. So he was able to go to the back end of the system and extracted this detail, and that's how we were able to migrate with detailed assets identified in the new system. It exists now, and we can prepare those reports.
Just to follow up, you're saying that the auditors relented in absorbing the information that you guys put through, meaning that your refutations were legit, but it wasn't put in, it wasn't accepted by the auditors.
Yes, so I personally provided the data to the auditors. I personally tried to communicate with the particular auditor doing the audit in this, but it was futile. They were not receptive, and it was very aggressive the way the communication was going. It was not a communication that was around trying to understand the issues, trying to actually get to the bottom of the issue. It was, I am right, you're wrong. And there's very little I can do about that.
Honorable Chair, that's quite unfortunate. But then, however, management has responded with respect to this particular matter that we're talking about. Let's have a look at this. Management has responded with respect to this, and he has exactly explained how unsatisfied they were with respect to the approach the external auditors have taken. So I think that might not necessarily require much interaction. Auditor General is here, and this is the office that contracted the external auditor. Auditor General, you are the one who contracted them, and now there's an issue between them and an institution that would require technical advice, and if they would pick it up, and probably there would be an extra work for them to ensure that these things are established, and they tell us what we do as National Assembly members.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable I just want to maybe, as the management have put their points, maybe we should listen to the auditors also, their version of the story. And then from there, we can give you our own version. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We were waiting for our opportunity to speak on this matter. During the audit of NAWEC particularly, it's been really difficult because any point that you put across, it's always a difficult situation that we have to deal with, back and forth, and at times it has not been pleasant at all. I must say that. On this particular point, a lot of information was provided, and back and forth was done to be able to clarify, because any point an auditor puts down, we have the evidence to substantiate what we have put. We don't just write from the sky. So to say that there's we just came up with figures, I feel that it's misleading to anyone listening, and it is not right. It's not a fair statement even to make. So whatever we had, the approach we use, whatever point we have, there is back and forth. Emails go forward with how we came with how we did our calculations, and it is compared to what is provided by NAWEC. So really, any sensible thing to do in this case is, if we have a different figure compared to what NAWEC has, usually we look at the documents together, but rather than that, it's a lot of, really, I want to say, like, language that's not even right to use when you write to people. So I think one can go into details, but we are not here for that. We are sticking to the point. But we have detailed calculations to back what we have. We don't, like I said before, we don't just write for the sake of writing. We are not in that. Thank you.
Just to conclude from where Madam has stopped, in situations like this, when it comes to depreciation, there are certain ingredients that we have to take into consideration. That is the age of the asset, the timing, the rates, and the category, and so on and so forth. And then the date when it was acquired. And those will form the basis of the calculation for every line of asset that have been bought during the course of the year. And then you also include the assets that were carried forward from the previous year to have your detailed calculation. And that's what we did, figure of 387 million. What we got from NAWEC were hard-coded figures. That is, when figures are just point and they are not backed by calculations. And certainly we requested for the backup to be sent to us on numerous occasions. They were not available because we have to back our evidence because in order to reach a conclusion and form an opinion. So where their figures were not backed up, we cannot rely on them. And that was not only in the depreciation, but so many items in the audit, including revenue and so on. That was why when all of those were amalgamated, in the end, we couldn't rely on their figures to form an opinion. And that is it, clear as that. Thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Welcome. Would you like to say anything, AG?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Just to maybe brief the committee more on this whole issue. These differences are something that are tolerable differences when it comes to the profession that we're in as accountants and auditors. Especially this issue concerned here, which is the issue of the depreciation and the property, plant and equipment recognitions, fixed assets. I have been aware of some of the differences in opinion between the auditors and the auditees. However, we think that these things are still reconcilable. They are very much open to each of them agreeing and sitting and understanding each other's point of view. And we will encourage, and we have encouraged them earlier, to have that understanding, because these same issues will be coming up in the audit of the 2021, for example, which they were currently doing together with the 2020. So we will encourage the management and the auditors to keep an open reconciliatory approach and have an understanding, as the Director of Finance has explained, that they have disagreed with the audit assertions and they are ready to provide the information. So we believe that if they are provided the information, the auditors together with them can reach amicable conclusion, because we all are judged by the same standard or by the same benchmark. So we are hoping that this issue, and I notice in the management's responses also, that they have somehow acknowledged that they are aware. For example, management acknowledged the fixed asset register, which was in use, unfortunately was not fit for purpose. So if management has acknowledged that there was some challenges with relation to the fixed asset, and they have worked with a consultant to clarify and to adjust the values in those assets, and further down also in the response, the management has acknowledged that the revaluations of those assets in line with IFRS probably also need to be taken into account. These are points of difference of principles, or with the standards that are tolerable. As I said, they are tolerable differences, and we will encourage them to all be judged by the standard. Thank you, Honorable.
Thank you so much, AG. My chairman, I think this is an issue that you have to come in, because I want to believe both are a major players in our economy. You are implementing, there is a check on you. And in doing so, it's not a witch hunting, it's to help you improve upon your weaknesses. And that is why we are all here. So if you are not speaking the same language, that is something else. There was an entry meeting, there was an exit meeting. And all what have been done before they prepare this document, you have your final meeting. And no matter what, you should come to terms. So going forward, this is where you intervene. When audits are on, we have to pay attention because audits also have their time frame. When are we coming to your institution? They had an entry meeting with the senior management. We need X, Y, and Z to go as per your own regulations, as per your own act that you are governed with. So they'll go through all these things, and whenever they are also going out, they will interact with you, which is also very, very important here. So having this divergent view to a certain level might not help each and every one of us. Whatever you have as a material evidence, advance it forward so that we can avoid this type of issues. And you are with them, I think they already dealt with 2021 too. So these are issues that we have to look at it together. Anytime is emerging, this is where you have to chip in and make sure whatever is requested from your end, you provide it. So that if they are making an opinion, it can be in line where both of us has to be agreed upon. So that is something that we will advise, and going forward we will look at it. But whatever is in the book as a query, even whereas NAWEC will not agree, and since they don't agree, but this is what the auditors put. As far as this is concerned, it holds for sometimes until when there is something that is produced as evidence for us to resolve this thing. So that is the situation on the ground. Any other question, Ablai? It's okay. Do you have something related to this? Do you have something else? Okay.
Yeah, Chair.
Yes.
We thank you for your advice and also for the proposal coming from the National Audit Office. We will encourage the two parties to sit together again
Exactly.
and look at the issue and see whether there's a way forward, how to resolve this matter at the earliest possible time.
Thank you. Yes, go.
Thank you very much, Chair. Okay, on the income statement, I want the Director of Finance on page 15. Financial statement. If you look at earning before interest, taxation, depreciation, amortization. On depreciation and if you look at depreciation of I know it's going to be assets. In 2019, you had 802, negative 802,977. And coming to 2020, you have negative 40338. On the same page, you go to assets, tangible assets, property, plant, and equipment. In 2019, you had 724,102. Now, that increment, an increment of almost $1 million, 8,007. So if that increment here, why this big gap here in depreciation? I want you to explain to me what happened on that.
Yes, so I think I mentioned something, but in a different context. So the real going into the details and cleaning up of NAWEC's balance sheet, including fixed assets, actually started with 2019 books, and we discovered assets that were as a work in progress that have been commissioned a long time ago. There are many reasons for that, but that was one of the reasons why we are restructuring and changing. So when those assets were now capitalized, we calculated the depreciation for the 10 years that it should have been and recognized it in the accounts for 2019. So the 800 does not reconciliation for 2019, it also includes depreciation from previous year. And in 2019 accounts, these are presented separately. Unfortunately, the comparable figures are not showing here. But it is depreciation from previous year that is included in 2019.
It's like your total loss so can be I mean it includes everything from the total loss from the
included in 2019, like I explained before. So the depreciation is in 2019 that contributes to the loss. It's not only depreciation related to 2019 usage of the assets, it's also prior year depreciation.
But if you look at the, I know that cannot say it would be you are losing almost 8 books. I don't know now by then. That you're losing almost 8 books in every dollar. If you put all these things together, I mean, it's an amount that we need to look at properly. So currently, as we are, I know this why I always hate talking about past issues because currently it's over 3 years now. I mean, I think you have to start acting by now and then start talking to the SOEs and even with government. Let's start having our current financial statement than trying to have this back loss. And at the end of the day, we don't know where we are because we are just talking. I mean, it seems things are not real because we don't know currently what the status of NAWEC now. Exactly. So if you look at 2019 and 2020, it's almost 3 years. So now if you are talking based on this, it's like NAWEC is nowhere, to be honest. NAWEC should be, we should come and say close NAWEC. Sorry to say, by looking at this, you say close NAWEC because if you are losing every dollar, eight butut, it's something. So, but currently, as the director is always saying, we are improving, we are trying, but we don't know. So I think Mr. Cisse, as the director of NOA, you need to help us to see definitely what we can do to make sure that in every year, in anything that we are treating, let it be the current, not based on the past.
Thank you, Honorable Sir. Thank you, Honorable Chair. I definitely completely agree with Honorable Sir's suggestion. But we are definitely open to working with the committee on this very important task of making timely scrutiny of our SOEs. We have instituted some measures that we think, with your support, it will yield some benefit. We are encouraging all the SOEs, including, of course, NAWEC, to make timely preparation of financial statements and submit them for audits in accordance with the statutory deadlines of 31st of March. In order to enable the auditors to prepare those financial statements, in order to audit those financial statements within the timeline of another 3 months so that they can be presented for scrutiny in the relevant time period, because the time period is a very important factor, Honorable. You've mentioned something very, very important. In terms of scrutiny, the timing is quite important because we are dealing with issues that are now overtaken even by events. You know, the management have acknowledged some of these things because, of course, they are management, but most of them were not even there probably when some of those things were happening. But we definitely would try to work with your honorable committee and all the respective stakeholders in this regard, and we are happy to move along with this direction. Thank you.
I want clarity on the income statement, page 14. I am doubtful of these two elements. Administrative expenses in 2019 2019 was 94381. And in 2020, it has rise to 177. Looking at the recognition of other repairs, maybe the administrative assets may be linked around that end also. It's about 32. Previous year was 50. I want to know why the high cost of this administrative expense 2020 different from 2019. Page 14.
Yes, so if you go to page 31, this is broken down. Yes. And as an example, you can see you had insurance expenses of 26 million in 2020. You didn't have similar insurance expenses. Those are the comparison to say which elements were local and statutory taxes. Those are the payments we make to the local governments for trade licenses, but also rates. That was not recognized in 2019, but in 2020. So those are just few of the items. And you can also see that some of the items that had in both years, like the telephone and data expenses, was 3 times in 2019, in 2020 than it was in 2019.
Hello?
All right.
Good. Honorable Chair, we're talking about a significant increase in an administrative expenses. And she has explained some of these things in a breakdown in page 31. Good. And how is this still the situation as we speak? How do you ensure that you manage administrative expenses to ensure that administrative expenses and does not increase as significant as is happened here? I don't think this is the same way it happened from 2021 to 2022. And what are the reasons of the increase in an administrative expenses? What are the reasons of this increase?
Yes, I think the MD will answer.
Thank you very much, Honorable. I think the major administrative costs, as you may have seen in the 2020, has to do with insurance and also payments that we made to the local authorities for various license, let's say for trade license, and also how do you call it, royalties, right? Rates. So going forward, Honorable Member, we might even be incurring more administrative costs. And in fact, I can say certainly we are going to incur more administrative costs because some of our facilities in the past have not been included in our insurance policy, program. And going forward, we want to ensure that all our critical facilities are insured. And that will include our transmission and distribution infrastructure, because these are millions and millions of dollars that have been spent on these facilities. We will have to do an insurance cover for them. In the past, that was not happening, and we want to make sure that going forward, and that will definitely significantly increase the cost. Our water facilities also, a lot of investment is done there, and we'll make sure that they are insured. Our focus has always been on the power plants, against machinery breakdown, fire. But we intend to expand this because there is more to it than that. So in the future, the administrative cost might even be much higher. Yeah.
Honorable Chair, lastly, to tell us the administrative cost might increase, what does it yield for us at the end of the day? We expect that when we put in much money in the administration, the institution brings something for us, because we put in a lot to manage, so a lot should come in return also. But if we put in a lot to manage, but not much is coming in return, which means we're running into losses. Now, ensuring all those outlets you have across the country, how much money do you think this insuring going to put you? And some of these facilities that you have, in fact, the cost of an insure might be a bit higher than what you get from those facilities.
Honorable, that is not going to be the case, and it's not just usual for that to be the case. I'm not so from what experience that you had, but for your insurance cost, for example, your vehicle, for your insurance cost will be more than the cost of your vehicle. Well, that would be mind-boggling. I think so. So our power plants are properly assessed, and we do this through an open tender process to the insurance companies to make sure we get value for money. And therefore, the premium is dictated by your level of risk. It's not based on the cost of the equipment as such. The risk is very essential in determining your premium. I'm not an insurance specialist, but the fact that your fear is that we might be paying more money for insurance than the benefits that we are going to get from those facilities. I think the two are not even comparable. Can you imagine if you don't insure your facilities and there's a fire outbreak? That will cost you more. Not necessarily in terms of money, but imagine if there is no power supply. The business of this country will go down. It will completely get halted. And that means, if you quantify that in a day, it will be more than the cost of the plant as to how much the country will lose for lack of electricity supply. Can you imagine people not having water supply for even 1 or 2 months continuously, simply because our facilities have been burnt down and they are not producing water? It's not about the monetary value, it's the life itself that's going to be impacted. So the cost, you cannot compare it at all. Thank you.
Honorable Chair, I'm not necessarily saying they should not be insured, because I know in business, if you concentrate on profit, you forget about risk. Risk will come and eat away all your profit. I know that in business. So you factor out risk before it strikes. What I'm necessarily trying to say here, we have seen a significant increase in an administrative cost. I'm not in fact looking at one outlet out of this. I'm looking at what are we yielding with all these activities that we're doing. We're spending a lot on insurance. We're spending a lot on heavy fuels. We're spending a lot on that and a lot on that. What I'm saying in general terms, what do we get out of all this? I'm not saying in return, you should not insure your outlets. I'm not necessarily saying that. But what I'm saying is, if you telling us that the administrative cost going forward will be increasing, and particularly those figures might be very significant. So if that happens, what do we get from that? Because that's what I'm trying to say.
Honorable, the number one thing you will get is peace of mind, knowing fully that your facilities are insured. As management, that's the number one thing you will achieve. Peace of mind, that you have assurance that if there is fire at Kotu Power Station, for example, I am covered. If there is fire at my primary substation, for example, take Yabang substation, where we are spending millions of dollars to put up that adequate, state-of-the-art equipment, and you just leave it out there without being insured, where government has spent millions to make sure that we modernize our transmission and distribution infrastructure. And for this, just for the purpose of saying you are trying to cost cut, and you leave that facility uncovered, well, we cannot take the risk. So the effect of having those facilities insured is that we will be able to provide reliable supply to our people, knowing fully well that management has peace because for the fact that the facilities are, covered. So it's not just about how much we are spending as insurance cover. Forget that's not the thing. But this is an industry norm, honorable. It's an industry norm. This is what we need to do. If we don't do, that's why you should come to blame us. But the moment we do that, you should comment us for insurance facilities. The auditors should even pick that up.
Thank you, MD.
Yeah.
I think going forward. Imam.
Yes, thank you very much. Can we move to page 35? HR lapses. Management letter and audit finance. Page 35, HR lapses. I'm wondering the front and back with the auditors and also management in cognizance of some of the lapses, especially area of staff operations and also elimination of ghost workers in HR of NAWEC, page 35. Looking at the overall performance, I am worried the progression of NAWEC as an institution in terms of its core management. How are you operating currently? Because looking at the key front and back, I am only seeing the indication that 2023. So I want to be clear. In 2020, fiscal year, there are a lot of mechanics that were not in place in terms of HR. Areas of wages, payment, elimination of ghost workers, and also staff's appraisals. How were you functioning during those periods? We want to know how were you doing your staff's functionality in terms of promotion, who gets what, who should not, who should also be in place in this. We want to be informed.
Thank you. Honorable, it's unfortunate that the staff appraisal has never happened in NAWEC since inception. We have never had any staff appraisal system in place. It is just that as part of our current reform process that we have introduced staff appraisals. I remember sometime in 2015, I guess, when the PMO carried out a staff audit on NAWEC. I don't know, maybe, yeah, that was a staff audit. So the issue of appraisal was also brought forward as a recommendation for NAWEC to consider doing staff appraisals. So we came to PMO and said we'll be happy for the fact that we don't have experience in doing staff appraisal. So we want to see how government is doing staff appraisal so that we can learn from government. And unfortunately also, it happened that the government was not also doing staff appraisal at the time. So we could not get help from the PMO. So we put it as part of our agenda to be able to make sure that this forms part of our restructuring process. So in 2019, 2020, when we conceived the issue of reforms and started hiring our group directors, who were, some of them were on permanent employment, we decided to terminate, to ask them to forgo their permanent employment and take contractual obligation, and then also introduce appraisal system for them as a pilot, because NAWEC has never done it in the past. And we have also prepared an appraisal policy which the board approved to roll this thing out to the rest of the staff, and which is commencing this year. So the challenge is appraisal systems has not been something that has been applied in the public sector in the Gambia. So mostly it was been done in the private sector. So we recognize this, and that's why we have started doing staff appraisals, and we started with the group directors. And 2023, the rest of the staff are also going to be appraised. So we apologize that we did not implement any staff appraisal in the past, but this is happening right now.
In a follow-up, can you tell us how were you doing your promotion? Who deserves what and who should not? What mechanism were you management using as a rewarding methodology to staffs of NAWEC?
Well, just in the absence of a formal system, we rely on the judgment of the directors and the supervisors. You know, the recommendation comes from the respective supervisors, directors, or managers for somebody to be promoted based on their what is called the supervision that they do. They can recommend and said, this guy deserves to be promoted or this guy deserves to be trained. But this was all informal because there has not been an informal appraisal system in NAWEC. So in hindsight, yes, it's informal, but that was what we were using.
So would you inform us, would you agree with me that NAWEC as an institution, the management, they're not fair to their staffs in terms of reward? Would you agree with me? If no, what would you sense? Because I've seen, we went on tour. Sometimes some of them would even say, I was promoted long since, I didn't get this, I am this, X, Y, Z. Because here we are talking of the workers, that MD that is at the top, the management that is controlling the welfare of the institution has been grounded by a workforce in the ground. So if those people are not in line of taking what is supposed to, what do we think? Here, I want to be clear, and we try to get a way forward, because these are positions that you and me are there. Tomorrow will be somebody. So if such had happened, and yet still it is the same syndrome, maybe changes, as you have said, 2023, maybe you're not seeing that. So the people who are already wounded, what could you tell us?
Thank you, Honorable. Probably I was also wounded in the past. Yeah, because you see, if you are in leadership, what you always reflect on is how were you feeling when you were at the bottom? The way your genius, the way you were thinking about your boss when you were at the bottom, you also reflect that similar way of thinking is also at the bottom, also looking at you as a leader. So we are very cognizant of that. And as I always said, being fair is subjective, because always somebody will say you are not fair. But what is most important to us as management is to do our best and make sure we take care of the welfare of our staff. Not everybody will be satisfied. Impossible. Even the people who are not doing anything will complain and say they also need to have something better. This happens. That's human nature. So, but be rest assured that that's not the management that you'll be referring to today as at NAWEC. Whoever deserves to be promoted, whoever deserves to be given the necessary training to acquire the skills that will better yourself, in your workplace, we are ready and willing to do that, and we have the support of our board. People, it's difficult to satisfy everybody. We can understand some people might not have been fairly treated in the past.
Thank you, MD.
Of course, these are things that we'll address.
Can we go to the next question?
Thank you very much, thank you very much, MD. Before my questions comes in, I want you to help us here, because you made mention something which is very, very, very important. Because the reason why I want to bring that question to you is I want it to serve as a tool, because it was a heated debate during our SOE bill when we were preparing the bills here before it becomes an act. With regards to the staffs that were on permanent employment, you said you negotiated with them for them to be on contract base. What did you have for those staffs? Did you pay them their services, or what were the tools that you used to have those staff accepting that contract instead of going their employment?
Well, it was not imposed. It was a condition for the position. And then those staff who were ready to accept that condition did apply and accept it, but it was not an imposition. So you can either opt not to take that job and continue on your permanent employment, or you go for this, because that's the reform, what is called agenda for NAWEC.
But Director, if you are saying you are advertising my occupying position, as a permanent staff. I have no problem. And I'm occupying this position. I'm doing my best on that position. You want to advertise that position and telling me to apply based on contract basis. And I mean, there should be something that we need to clear here, because you cannot tell me to apply on a position that I'm currently occupying without no problem. You are not transferring me. You are not terminating my service. So if you're telling me to come on a contract basis, I think there must be something that you need to do for that individual, at least to cover his length of service.
This is something that we have also discussed. But when the positions were being advertised, even some of the sitting directors also applied for the positions. Some of them did not qualify, even for the positions that they were occupying at the time, because of the requirements. Because that was the call for the reforms, to get the right skill sets in those positions. Yes, it has affected some people, but that's it. It was not an imposition, it was an option.
Okay, thank you very much, Director. My chair is on my neck. So, Chair, the Director and then the Chair, Honorable Chair. Let's go to page 30 on the financial statement. I'm not, Madam Director. I have an issue here that I want clarity here with regards to employment cost. Page 30. Are you there? On page 30, look at the employment costs. You have the figures 273, 232 in 2019. You come to the employment cost breakdown. Look at the employment cost breakdown, where you have 273 and 204. There is a big gap. And looking at the tactical and operational level, where you have 254, 412 from 0 in 2019 to 252, 412. There is a big difference in this, in which I need some explanation here. And coming down to the same breakdown here on the, look at the workforce breakdown. The workforce breakdown, there is a gap here between 2019, you have 1815, and then you have 1800. And yes, still look at the cost, there is a difference. Where is the problem? Why is it this way? I want a clarity here, please.
Okay, so the reforms that the MD spoke about were implemented in 2020, at the later part of 2020. So as someone who was not present at the time, I would like to defer to him.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, NAWEC reform started in 2020 when we recruited the group directors. And these group directors came at a time that even the salary structure also for the company has been, like it was restructured. So the salary levels and then even the structure itself have changed. So all with the objective of attracting qualified people to join NAWEC. So that's the reason why, if you look at the salary levels then in 2019 and the salary levels today, you will see the difference. And it was all meant to attract people. That's why you can see among us today, people who left their jobs outside, to come and join us, to support the reform process. Is because of that. And we were able to also get some qualified people from other sectors within the economy to join NAWEC to make sure that we can further the reform agenda.
I don't know whether I will be very fair. The Honorable Chair, the chairman, the director is saying that there is a reform, and then if you look at the way he's explaining, it's like there is something attractive to this position. And then looking at NAWEC situation based on this, it's like financially you are zero. Financially you are zero. Based, I'm not just quote me right. I'm explaining based on what I'm having here. So I don't know currently. Can you please help us through the chair, if possible, chair, for you to help us with your current salary scales and compare to the previous one so that we know where we are if possible.
It's readily available, and you are ready first to ask for this, and we will be happy to provide.
How soon would that be?
But maybe let me not say tomorrow, but we can send this to you next week.
Looking at, on the same page, on honorarium, how do you pay honorarium? Based on what do you pay honorarium to staff?
Honorable, thank you. No worries, no worries. Honorariums are paid for the purpose of providing an incentive to staff who have provided extra. Who are doing something extra. For example, in some instances, let me just give you a practical example. When we have some major works where people spend the night 24/7, they are still out in the field, probably repairing a particular major burst pipe that we wanted to make so people get their water before they wake up in the morning, even if it happens, in the morning, and this needs to be done all throughout the night to make sure that people get their water supply, and we keep them there. We make sure that at least when such jobs are completed to the satisfaction of management, we give them a token. If you look at how much we spend on honorarium, it's just a bit. We give them a token, and this is exactly what we do, just to be able to motivate our staff, to always provide extra, effort in some of the instances where we have emergencies or where they need to do extra to fix things. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I thought it was based on Ganila and others.
Ganila not in NAWEC.
Any other?
Honorable Chair, I realize that you really want us to do this as quick as possible, but Honorable Jiba has started the issue of some of HR, human resources deficiencies, which was not necessarily exhausted. Human resources issues are, if not the most important department. In fact, when I went through your table under your human resources, your manpower details and your staff turnover, I have page 66 of the activity report. Yes. As Honorable Jiba started talking about staff appraisal and the performance of the staff, and we could not be given any tangible information as to how the performance of the staff were assessed. How do you assess the performance of the staff? And because there was no staff appraisal manual they do not have any appraisal manual. So since the inception, as a result, they did not do any staff appraisal. So how do you ascertain or assess the performance of your staff? Because you can assess for staff performance assessment this should be compulsory upon our institutions to do this, but because you were not having any manual, so you were not doing it. And coming down, I want to look at your HR department. Is that the department has 62 staffs, 62 on permanent staff, and 9 on contract. Altogether 71. Your HR department, human resources department, 71 staffs on the human resources. Where are all these human resource officers housed? Where are they housed? One. And what informs that all these staff would be under the human resource department of NAWEC? Human resource. And also internal audit. You have 20 staff on the internal audit. 20 of them on the internal audit. Where are all these people housed? Do you have them in different outlets also? And for internal audit, what is the highest qualification of your internal auditor, right? And your HR department, is it an HR manager or HR officer also? Whether you have an officer or a manager. So these two areas stands very important to me. Your human resources seems very huge, very large, and your internal audit also seems a very large number, and their qualification also would be important for one to know, because if we have this large number and still we have internal audit issues, we need to question what is the problem because of the capacity? Do we have capacity gap? Or do we have a higher number that are trying to do something that few number could do, and they're trying to waste much time but are not yielding dividend for us? We need to be able to establish that. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick repeat of what I responded to earlier on the same question that you asked about our appraisal system. I've already responded to that question, and I think maybe then we were not following. But just to repeat, NAWEC, like most public institutions in the Gambia, have not had an appraisal system, a formal appraisal system, to be able to appraise their staff. I said this earlier that we were audited by the government of the Gambia in 2015. PMO did that to do a staff audit, and they recommended that we should do a staff appraisal. And management was open to this. So we requested for help from the PMO because it has not been a practice in NAWEC to do a formal appraisal. Unfortunately, PMO also have never done a staff appraisal in government. So we couldn't get the help. So we identified this as part of our reform agenda, and it is included in our reform process. So 2020, when we hired our group directors, they were the first, to go through an appraisal system and as a pilot, because we have never done it in the past. So 2023, we got approval in 2022 by the board, an appraisal policy, where we roll appraisal system now, for all the staff, going in 2023. That is going to happen. How we have been assessing the performance of our staff and making certain recommendations. This was coming from the heads of departments, supervisors, and managers. And they make recommendations based on their best judgment of the performance of individuals. And that was completely informal. But that was the system that was in place, and we are now replacing that with a formal system. Coming to the issue of the number for the HR. In 2020, HR was also handling our transport department. They were also handling all the cleaners. They were under them. So the security were also answerable to the HR team. But when we started the reform process, as we speak now, we have a facilities department, which is under the Group Corporate Services Directorate. So all those people, the transport, the security, and the cleaners are all now been moved to the facilities department, the unit under the Group Corporate Service Director. So these numbers will not be the same after the reforms. So for internal audit, the number 20 will look big for you, but we are getting complaints that we are overstretching them because of NAWEC's, the level of transactions and the operation, the way it is widespread countrywide, and their presence is always required in most of our activities. They've been complaining, but notwithstanding, the board has not been very willing also to be adding numbers just like that. And the skill sets that you have also talked about, the reality is, yes, we have skill gaps in our internal audit. But notwithstanding, the director there is an ACCA holder and with other professional qualifications. And we have other managers who are also there, not with the ACCA, which we are now currently recruiting, additional senior manager position within the audit department to reinforce, the